What if I told you that the pain you're feeling right now is your greatest weapon? That the very thing tearing you apart can be the force that rebuilds you into someone they never expected? Most people suffer after a breakup because they don't understand one simple truth: pain is power, but only if you know how to use it. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. You can let this consume you, drag you down, and make you weak, or you can harness it, sharpen it, and use it to become something unshakable, something undeniable. Think about it. How do most people react when someone leaves? They beg, they plead, they try to explain, desperate to fix what's already broken. They tell themselves that if they just understood, they'd come back. But that never works. Attraction isn't built on explanations, it's built on emotions. The more desperate you seem, the less attractive you become. The moment you start chasing, you surrender your power. The one who wins does something completely different. They don't beg, they don't explain, they don't wait around hoping for closure. They disappear, they rebuild, they transform. This isn't about ignoring them. No contact isn't some passive move where you sit in silence waiting for them to reach out. This is war, a silent war where the battlefield is their mind. Every second of your absence plants a seed of doubt. Did I make the right choice? Why aren't they chasing me? Did they move on already? You don't block them because you're bitter. You don't vanish to play games. You execute a strategy so cold, so calculated, that by the time they realize what happened, it's already too late. By the time they finally look back, they won't even recognize the person standing in front of them. This is about shifting the power dynamic. It's about using Stoicism, psychology, and pure discipline to make them feel the full weight of their decision. They expect you to crumble, but you rise. They expect you to be bitter, but you're indifferent. They expect you to be stuck, but you outgrow them so completely that they start questioning if they ever truly knew you. And that's when it happens. The breakup hits them 10 times harder than it ever hit you. So if you're done suffering, if you're ready to stop being a prisoner to your emotions and start becoming something great, then it's time to move. Not for them, not for revenge, but for you. Because the best revenge isn't anger. It isn't proving a point. It's becoming someone they never imagined losing. And by the time they realize it, they'll wish they never let you go. And here's the real question. What will you do with this pain? Will you let it break you, or will you use it to build something unstoppable? Stay with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to show you exactly how to turn this moment into your greatest transformation. But first, if you're ready to take control, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a lesson like this. I want you to affirm your power right now. Comment below, I am valuable. Let the world know you're not broken. You're just getting started. Now, let's begin. 1. Forge fire into strength. Right now, it feels like the weight of the world is pressing down on you. The memories, the what-ifs, the endless replaying of every conversation, every mistake. It's suffocating. You wake up thinking about them. You go to sleep with that same ache in your chest. You wonder if they think about you too, if they regret it, if there's something you could have done differently. But here's the truth that no one tells you. This pain isn't your enemy, it's your greatest weapon. Most people crumble under heartbreak. No, they drown themselves in distractions, drinking, meaningless hookups, endless scrolling, anything to numb the emptiness. They beg, they plead, they chase, convinced that if they just say the right words, if they just prove their worth, everything will go back to the way it was. But it never works, because attraction isn't built on logic, it's built on emotion. And the more desperate someone seems, the less valuable they become. Desperation is repelling. It screams weakness, and weakness is never attractive. But a different kind of person, the one who rises from this stronger, doesn't run from pain. They don't let it consume them. They take it, they harness it, and they shape it into something unshakable. Think of a blade being forged. It doesn't take shape without fire, pressure, and being beaten into form. Right now, you are in that fire, and what you do next will determine whether you come out as steel or let yourself be reduced to ashes. Pain is just energy, and energy, when controlled, is raw power. Every emotion, anger, sadness, regret, is fuel waiting to be used. Channel that energy into the gym, into your work, into your goals. Every time you feel the urge to reach out, drop down and do 50 push-ups. Every time your mind drifts back to them, put in another hour building your future, your body, your mind, your success. These are the things you can control. When suffering is transformed into strength, it no longer owns you. And when you no longer suffer over them, something shifts. Because here's what they expect. They expect you to stay broken. They expect you to sit there replaying the past, waiting for closure that will never come. They expect you to remain the same person they left behind, frozen in time. But that person is gone. And the moment they realize that, the moment they see you thriving instead of suffering, that's when they start to feel it. Nothing haunts someone more than realizing the person they left behind has become someone they can no longer have. That's when the regret sets in. But by then, it won't even matter to you because you will have already outgrown them. You will have already leveled up beyond their reach, and that is the true victory. Not proving a point, not seeking revenge, but becoming someone so powerful, so undeniable, that they become nothing more than a lesson in your story. This isn't about them anymore. It's about you. This pain isn't the end. It's the beginning. And only one question remains. What will you do with it? 2. Disappear like a ghost. Rise like a legend. Silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon. When you walk away without a trace, when you remove yourself completely, you create something they never expected. Emptiness. And that emptiness haunts them. The human mind hates unfinished stories. It craves closure, explanations, and predictable endings. But when you vanish, when you don't react the way they thought you would, you leave them grasping at nothing. They believe they had you figured out. They thought you'd reach out, fight for them, beg for another chance. That's what most people do, right? But when you choose silence over desperation, they start questioning everything, and that's where the shift happens. Most fail at no contact because they don't truly commit. They leave breadcrumbs, liking posts, checking stories, watching from the shadows, hoping to be noticed. But that's not real detachment. That's still holding on, still waiting, still keeping them in control. If you truly want to shift the power, you don't just go quiet. You vanish. No texts, no calls, no checking their social media, no indirect messages through mutual friends. You become a ghost. And here's where psychology comes into play. The mind obsesses over what it can't have. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. People remember unfinished situations more than those with closure. Right now, you are that unfinished story in their mind. Your absence becomes a question they can't answer. At first, they'll assume you're just giving them space. Then they'll think you're trying to make them miss you. But as time goes on, as your silence remains unshaken, that's when it starts to sting. Because the moment they realize they no longer have access to you, that they don't know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, or if you even care anymore, that's when regret starts creeping in. The harsh truth is this: people don't appreciate what they have constant access to. If they were used to you, always being available, always being there, they took you for granted. And the only way to reverse that is to remove yourself entirely. The less they know about you, the more they think about you. The more they think about you, the more they doubt their decision. But here's the thing, you don't do this for them. You do this for you. This isn't a game, a trick or a strategy to manipulate someone back into your life. This is about reclaiming your power, about proving to yourself that you're not controlled by your emotions, that you don't need external validation to know your worth. The moment they finally start to miss you, the moment they consider reaching out, they won't be reaching out to the same person they left, because by then, you will have evolved beyond their expectations. You will have become someone they no longer have access to. Someone they can no longer. That's the power of vanishing. That's the power of becoming an enigma. When you disappear like a ghost, you don't just leave, you transform. And when you rise again, you rise as something greater than they ever imagined. Free, unshaken, unbothered, unstoppable. The moment they walked away, they expected something from you. A reaction, maybe sadness, maybe anger, maybe desperation, or even hatred. But they wanted to see something. Why? Because emotion equals attachment. As long as you're reacting, as long as they can see your pain, they still have control. And that's the game most people lose. They let their emotions dictate their actions. They send long emotional messages trying to explain, trying to fix what's already broken. They check social media obsessively, looking for clues about their life. They lash out in bitterness, trying to make them jealous, trying to prove a point. But every single one of those moves sends a clear message. You still occupy space in my mind. But a different kind of person operates on another level. They understand that emotions are natural, but acting on them is a choice. They don't deny the pain, but they don't let it consume them either. They master it, and this is where the real shift happens. Indifference isn't pretending not to care. It's reaching a point where their actions no longer shake you, where it doesn't matter if they move on, if they come back, if they're happy, or if they're suffering, because your world doesn't revolve around them anymore. That's real control. And here's where psychology flips everything on its head. When someone expects an emotional reaction and doesn't get it, they start to question their own power. That's what gets under their skin more than anything. They thought they'd see you hurting, but instead you're unmoved. They thought you'd seek validation, but instead you've gone completely silent. They assumed you'd be watching them, but you've disappeared so fully that they don't even know if they still exist in your mind. And that burns more than any argument, any angry words, any attempt at revenge. Because people don't question themselves when you lash out. They don't question themselves when you beg. They don't question themselves when you act out of anger. But when you don't react at all, that's when doubt creeps in. It's like standing in front of a mirror that doesn't reflect back. They don't get to see your pain. They don't get to feed off your energy. And suddenly, for the first time, they wonder, did they really have as much power over you as they thought? Were they really as unforgettable as they believed? That's when the breakup starts to hit them harder than it ever hit you. Because when you hold your frame, when you show that nothing shakes you, they have no choice but to start doubting their decision. And here's the best part. You don't do this for them. You don't hold your frame as some reverse psychology trick to make them regret leaving. You do it because you are no longer controlled by anyone but yourself. You do it because your emotions are yours to master, not theirs to manipulate. You do it because you refuse to let temporary feelings dictate your long-term value. This isn't about proving a point. This isn't about playing games. This is about becoming unshaken, unbothered, unstoppable. And when you do, the past stops owning you, the future starts working for you. And by the time they realize what they lost, you'll be too far ahead to care. 4. Rewrite yourself, erase their relevance right now. They assume they know you. They assume that when they walked away, you stayed the same, that you're still stuck in the same routine, thinking about them, replaying the past, living in the same cycle. And this assumption is your greatest weapon, because most people, after a breakup, stay exactly where they were left. They isolate themselves, drown in emotions, or try to prove something with forced social media posts and fake happiness. But that's not how you play this game. You don't prove anything with words. You prove it with evolution, not for them, but for you. The biggest mistake people make is trying to make an ex jealous by being obvious, posting thirst traps, flexing, oversharing. That's not power. That's emotional attachment, and emotions show weakness. Real strength is in what they can't see, what they can't access, what they can't define anymore. You shift your entire reality so completely that even if they wanted to, they wouldn't recognize the person you're becoming. Upgrade everything. Your environment, your habits, your mindset. Start going to new places, meeting new people, building new routines, not to be seen, but to grow so deeply into your future that you no longer have time to think about the past. And here's where the psychology kicks in. People don't just hate being replaced. They fear becoming irrelevant. It's not just about you finding someone new. It's about you evolving beyond their reach. They wanted to believe they were a pivotal part of your life, that their absence would leave a hole. But when they see you thriving without them, when they realize they were just a chapter and not the whole book, that's when it hits them. Even if they don't follow you anymore, trust this, someone is watching. For them, every move you make, every shift in your energy, every upgrade in your life, it all gets back to them. And when they realize the version of you they once knew no longer exists, when they finally understand that you were never waiting, never stuck, never trapped in the past, that's when the void starts to form. Because now the question isn't, do they miss me? It's, how did they move on so fast? And once that question enters their mind, it doesn't leave. But here's the key. You don't do this for them. You don't evolve to spark regret or to prove a point. You do it because you refuse to be a prisoner of the past. You do it because life is too short to waste in places you've already outgrown. You do it because rewriting yourself isn't about them losing you. It's about you winning yourself back. And by the time they finally wake up to what they lost, you'll be too far ahead to care. No hate, no love, just nothing. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Most people get this wrong. They think that showing anger, bitterness, or trying to win the breakup will somehow prove their worth. They believe that if they flex hard enough, post enough, or make their absence loud enough, it will send a message. But all of that is still emotional attachment. Every ounce of frustration, every reaction, every forced display of moving on is proof that they still hold space in your mind. And that keeps them in control. The truth is simple. If they can still trigger a reaction from you, they still own a part of you. It doesn't matter if that reaction is love, hate, sadness, or pride. It's still proof that you care. And a person who still cares is a person who is still bound. A person who still plays the game is a person who is still losing. But a person who is indifferent, a person who simply moves forward without looking back, that's the one who holds real power. Because here's what they expect. They expect emotion. They expect drama. They expect a chase. They expect something, anything, that proves they mattered. And when they get nothing, when you treat them like just another face in the crowd, that's when it starts to hit them. That's when the doubt creeps in. Did I even mean anything to them? Was I just another experience? How are they so unaffected? That silence, that absence of emotion, that void where they thought they'd still have space, that's what makes them feel the breakup 10 times harder than you ever did. And here's the paradox. The more they try to find proof that you still care, the more they realize they've lost their hold over you. They start checking, scrolling through your social media, asking mutual friends, looking for any sign that they still exist in your mind. But by then, you won't even care. Because true indifference isn't about pretending. It's not about acting like you've moved on while secretly watching from the shadows. It's about genuinely realizing that they were never the prize. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about stepping out of the game entirely. It's about understanding that your energy, your focus, your mind are far too valuable to be wasted on what's already gone. This is what it means to be untouchable. No hate, no love, just nothing. And nothing is the one thing they never saw coming. 6. Rare, unreachable, irreplaceable. People only truly value what they can't have. That's human nature. The moment something is always available, it loses its worth. Right now, they assume they still have access to you. Maybe not directly, but in their mind, you're still an option. They believe that if they ever wanted to reach out, you'd respond. That if they showed the slightest interest, you'd come running back. And as long as they believe that, they feel no longing, no urgency, no regret. Most people make the mistake of staying available after a breakup. They don't chase, but they don't completely disappear either. They linger in the background, responding to breadcrumbs, keeping doors half open with lines like, maybe in the future. They tell themselves it's smart, that it keeps things open-ended. But in reality, it's not power, it's weakness disguised as hope. And hope in this case is the enemy, because what is always within reach is never valued. If someone believes you will always be an option, they have no reason to miss you. But the second they realize they've lost all access to you, that's when the regret sets in. That's when the absence starts to sting. This is why you don't just go no contact. You make yourself scarce in every way. You don't just ignore their texts. You become unreachable. You stop going to the same places. You stop being in their world entirely. And if they ever try to check up on you, all they find is a blank space where you used to be, a question mark where there used to be certainty. And here's the psychological twist. People chase what they can't have. Scarcity creates demand. It's why luxury items cost more. It's why people want exclusive access. It's why disappearing makes them rethink everything. When you were always there, they had the luxury of taking you for granted. But now you are a mystery. Now you are something rare. And suddenly they start to wonder, did they ever really have you at all? By the time they realize your attention is no longer free, that your presence is no longer an option, that they may have lost you for good, that's when they feel the breakup 10 times harder than you ever did. Because now they don't just want you back, they want something they can't have. And nothing haunts a person more than knowing they lost something truly irreplaceable. 7. Echoes in their mind, the ghost that won't fade. Disappearing doesn't mean being forgotten. If done right, your absence will haunt them more than your presence ever did. That's because the mind never lets go of unfinished stories. Right now, they assume that once they stop seeing you, they'll stop thinking about you, that once you're out of sight, you'll be out of mind. But that's not how this works. The goal isn't to remind them of you directly, it's to plant a thought so subtle, so effortless, that it lingers in the back of their mind, growing, spreading, pulling them into curiosity without them even realizing it. Most people try too hard to prove they've moved on. They flood social media with forced happiness, Fake confidence, desperate attempts to seem unaffected. That's weakness. That's still attachment. A person who has truly moved on doesn't have to prove it. They simply live, but they live in a way that makes others wonder. They move in silence, yet their absence speaks louder than any post, any status, any words ever could. Maybe they hear from a mutual friend that you've been different lately. More focused, more driven, more engaged with life. No details, no explanations, just enough to plant the seed. Maybe they come across a picture of you, not something obvious, not something staged, but something real. You in a place they never saw you before, doing something they never expected. It's not for them, it's for you. But that one image, that one detail, is enough to trigger a thought. What are they up to? Who are they with? Why do they seem different? And that's when you've won. Because curiosity is a powerful emotion. The second they start wondering about you again, they lose control. They start checking, scrolling, asking, searching for clues in the silence you left behind. But the more they look, the less they find. Because by the time their curiosity turns into regret, you've already moved so far ahead that their thoughts don't even matter anymore. This isn't about games. This isn't about manipulation. This is about becoming someone so undeniably rare, so untouchable, that even in your absence, you leave a presence, not by chasing, not by proving, but simply by evolving into someone they never saw coming. And by the time they realize what they lost, all they'll be left with is echoes of what could have been. Vanished without a trace, missed without a chance. Right now, they assume they have the upper hand. They believe that because they ended things first, because they walked away, you'll always be there, waiting, watching, hoping. And as long as they believe that, they will never truly feel your absence. But here's the psychological shift that changes everything. You don't chase them. You let them chase the space you left behind. Most people make the mistake of either chasing directly or lingering in the shadows, hoping to be noticed. They stay available, casually liking a post, showing up just enough to remain an option. That's not power. That's not detachment. That's still giving them control. The real move is the opposite. You don't just leave, you become untouchable. And this is where the mind games begin. Because people don't feel the weight of a loss when it happens. They feel it when their power over you disappears. At first, they'll feel confident. They'll assume you'll come back, that it's only a matter of time before you break the silence. But as time passes, as they watch you evolve instead of collapse, doubt creeps in. Did I misjudge them? Why haven't they reached out? Are they really over me? And that's when the panic sets in, because people expect to be missed. They expect to hold space in your mind. And when they realize they don't, that's when they start chasing, not you, but the feeling of importance they lost. But here's the real power move. By the time they realize they've lost you, you won't even want them back. Because while they were waiting for you to return, you weren't waiting for anything. You were healing, growing, becoming someone they can no longer reach. And that's the irony. They thought they had control. They thought you'd always be an option. And now they're the ones checking their phone. Now they're the ones wondering if you will ever return. But you won't, because by the time they start missing you, you'll be too far ahead to care. 9. From broken to bulletproof, turning loss into power. Most people see a breakup as a loss. They think they've been robbed of something valuable, that they've lost the one they are somehow incomplete without. But that's the biggest lie ever told. A breakup isn't a loss, it's a release. A release from illusion, from attachment, from the version of yourself that believed you needed someone else to be whole. The moment you stop seeing this as a tragedy and start seeing it as a transformation, everything changes. Society has conditioned people to believe that they need someone else to validate their worth. That being chosen is what makes a person valuable. But true value doesn't come from being picked. It comes from being undeniable. It comes from discipline, purpose, and the ability to stand alone. The second you shift your mindset from needing to being, from chasing to attracting, you step into real power. Ask yourself this: why did you place so much of your happiness in someone else's hands? Why did you believe that a single person had the power to define your emotional state? Because here's the truth: they didn't complete you, they distracted you. And now, without them, you're finally forced to face yourself. That's where most people break, but that's also where the strong ones rise. Pain is temporary, but the person you become after this lasts forever. You don't move on from a breakup. You evolve past it. You don't seek revenge. You don't try to make them jealous. You simply outgrow the version of yourself that needed them in the first place. And the moment you truly understand this, the moment you realize that no person, no relationship, no loss can ever take your power away, that's when you become untouchable. This isn't an ending. It's the beginning of something unstoppable. And by the time they realize what they lost, you'll be too far ahead to look back. 10. Gone for good. When they eventually come crawling back, you won't even be around to see it. Not because you're playing games or withholding emotion, but because you've mastered the final move long ago. Imagine a stage where the spotlight once shone on you, held by the expectation that you'd wait and be available, a predictable constant in their life. Now you've become an elusive mystery, a shadow that no longer lingers at the edge of their vision. In that moment, if you've executed everything perfectly, curiosity and regret will gnaw at them until they dare to send a casual "How have you been?" Or perhaps, like an old photograph resurfacing unexpectedly, a reminder that the past still echoes faintly in their mind. But here's the twist. When that message arrives, many make the grave mistake of seizing it as an opportunity to prove that nothing has changed. That they are still the same person who waited, who was always ready to give them what they left behind. That, however, is the trap. For the truth is far more subtle and powerful, but in reality, absence makes the mind question. And in that questioning lies the collapse of their control. You see, the moment you validated their presence by reaching out or showing any sign of the person you once were, you would have unwittingly confirmed their hold over you. Instead, you've transformed yourself into someone completely different, a version that has evolved beyond the confines of the past. This new you is like a river that has carved a new path, irrevocably changed by the force of its own momentum. The person you were is dead. The new you doesn't need validation, doesn't crave attention, and certainly doesn't wait for anyone's call. When they dare to reach out, it's not a chance to reclaim their lost power. It's a desperate attempt to retrieve what they thought they still controlled. And if you even entertain their message with a reaction, a hurried reply, a burst of nostalgia, a spark of the old flame, it sends a clear signal. I'm still the same, still waiting. That is when everything you've built, every ounce of strength, every piece of new identity, starts to crumble like a house of cards. Consider this. Imagine a candle that once burned brightly in a dark room, providing warmth and illumination, now extinguished, leaving behind only the memory of its light. Their regret and longing are like the faint smell of smoke after the flame has died, a reminder of what once was, but nothing more. It's a reminder that the glow they once took for granted is now replaced by a cold, unyielding void that neither beckons nor welcomes their return. In their desperate search for a sign that you're still the person they once knew, they might scrutinize your social media. ask mutual acquaintances about your whereabouts, or even hope that by some twist of fate, you'll appear at the very place you once frequented together. But every such attempt only reinforces the truth. You're already gone. As the ancient philosopher Heraclitus once observed, you cannot step into the same river twice, because both you and the river are in a state of constant change, and that change is your ultimate liberation. By the time they muster enough courage to test the silence with a tentative outreach, the power dynamics have irrevocably shifted. Their inquiry is less about rekindling what was and more about confronting the bitter reality that you no longer belong to their narrative. The question isn't whether you miss them, it's whether they ever truly mattered. In that silence, which speaks volumes, you've turned your absence into a fortress, a reminder that the life you've built since is so rich and unburdened that there's simply no space left for what they once represented. Their attempts to reclaim even a fraction of your attention are like trying to capture moonlight in your hands. Ephemeral, ungraspable, and ultimately pointless. The energy they invest in chasing the ghost of a past version of you only serves to highlight your transformation and their diminishing relevance. There may be a fleeting thought in their mind, perhaps a whisper of, could it be that I misjudged them, or is it possible that they're really over me? But these questions, like echoes in an empty hall, quickly dissipate in the face of your newfound reality. You have become a symbol of growth, a testament to the idea that true power lies not in clinging to what was, but in boldly stepping into what could be. And in that stepping away, you've rewritten the rules. Instead of waiting for validation from someone who once held sway over you, you now generate your own. You've learned that the ultimate revenge isn't in making them chase you. It's in evolving so completely that when they finally consider the possibility of re-entering your life, they find that the door has long been shut. The irony is both poetic and profound. The very person who once believed they had the final say in your story now faces the quiet realization that they were merely a chapter, not the title or the ending. Their attempts to call you back are doomed to fail, because by that time, you'll have moved so far ahead that the thought of returning to a familiar past becomes inconceivable. In every sense, you are already gone, not in a bitter or resentful way, but in a way that is liberating and transformative. You've taken the power of your absence and turned it into a statement, a declaration that you are not defined by what was lost, but by what you have become. And that, ultimately, is the final move. A move so decisive and so complete that when they finally reach out, all they find is a void where your presence once filled the space. A void that resonates with the truth that you are no longer available, no longer interested, and most importantly, no longer affected by their desire to reclaim what never truly belonged to them. In this new chapter, you're not just walking away. You're marching forward with unyielding resolve, leaving behind the echoes of a past that served only as a stepping stone to your greater destiny. There's a certain freedom in knowing that while they may one day regret their decision, it will be far too late to alter the course of your journey. And as you continue to build a future that reflects your true worth and untamed potential, you leave behind a legacy of strength, a legacy that stands as a reminder that once you've mastered the art of letting go, you become utterly, irrevocably gone for good.